Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. And Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya, Ashtotar to the Srimada's Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya, Ashtotar to the Srimada's Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj srimadbhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 8th day of January 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 21, Instructions by Maharaj Prithu, text number 48. Virdavaya pitak pritva vya samasanjiva shasvati yasyedrishyachute bhakti Sarvalokaika Bhartari Virdavarya Pitak Pritvya Samasan Jiva Shasvati Yasya Drishyachute Bhakti Sarvalokaika Bhartari Virdavarya Pitak Pritvya Samasan Jiva Shasvati Yasya Drishyachute Bhakti Sarvalokaika Bhartari Virdavarya Pitak Pritvya Samaksan Jiva Shasvati Yasya Drishyachute Bhakti Sarvalokaika Bhartari. Diamond, are you ready? And Virdavarya Pitak Pritvya Samaksan Jiva Shasvati Yasya Drishyachute Bhakti Sarvalokaika Bhartari Virdavarya Pitak Pritvya Samaksan Jiva Shasvati Yasya Drishyachute Bhakti Sarvalokaika Bhartari Virdavarya Pitak Pritvya Samaksan Jiva Shasvati Yasya Drishyachute Bhakti Sarvalokaika Bhartari. Not yet. Virdavarya, the best of the warriors. Pitaha, the father. Pritvya, of the globe. Samaha, equal to in years. Sanjiva, live. Shasvati, forever. Yasya, whose. Idrishi, like this. Achyute, unto the Supreme. Bhakti, devotion. Sarva, all. Loka, planets. Eka, one. Bhartari, maintainer. Translation. So these are the Brahmins and Vaishnavas glorifying Maharaj Prithu. All the saintly Brahmins thus addressed Prithu Maharaj. O best of the warriors, O father of this globe, may you be blessed with a long life, for you have great devotion to the infallible Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the master of all the universe. Purport. Prithu Maharaj was blessed by the saintly persons present at the meeting to have a long life because of his unflinching faith in and his devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although one's duration of life is limited in years, if by chance one becomes a devotee, he surpasses the duration prescribed for his life. Indeed, sometimes yogis die according to their wish, not according to the laws of material nature. Another feature of a devotee is that he lives forever because of his infallible devotion to the Lord. It is said, Kirtir yasya sajivati. One who leaves a good reputation behind him lives forever. Specifically, one who is reputed as a devotee of the Lord undoubtedly lives forever. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking with Ramananda Roy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inquired, "What is the greatest reputation?" Ramananda Roy replied that a person who is reputed as a great devotee has the greatest reputation. For a devotee not only lives forever in the Vaikuntha planets, but by his reputation he also lives forever within this material world. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this is actually a very, how should I say, nectar-filled section of Bhagavatam. You have Maharaj Prithu praising the Brahmins and Vaishnavas, and he's even describing how Lord Krishna himself praises them and offers them so much honor. And here Maharaj Prithu is being praised by those Brahmins. It's understood that when it says Brahmins, they're Brahmin Vaishnavas. That may he live forever, may he live a long life, for you have great devotion to the infallible Lord, who is the master of all the universe. So how does a devotee live? Just like we see, Srila Prabhupada is such a great devotee. So his influence is still going on today. We chant his glories here, we bow down to him, we read his books, we read about his life, and that has a great influence on us. It's like association can take many forms. Now, the association, the basic meaning is you meet somebody, you talk with them, they influence you, you influence them. This is Sangha. In the ordinary discourse between people, it's according to the Bhagavad Gita verse, Sangat Sanjayate Kama. According to your Sangha, you develop your desires, you develop your character, and so forth. That's why parents know it's so important that their children hang out with the right people. And nowadays they have to keep track of what they look at on the internet, because that's also Sangha. That's all Sangha. So when it comes to a devotee, because his activity is eternally pertinent, meaning that what devotees did 500 years ago with Lord Chaitanya, how they interacted with Lord Krishna or with other devotees, that's good for us to read about and hear about and emulate, because these principles are eternal. It's not that, oh, that's completely out of date, you know. That happens on the material level, but on the spiritual level, Krishna is eternal, we're eternal. Our relationship of loving devotion and reciprocation, called bhakti, is eternal. So that's why these ancient books that we read, written in Sanskrit 5,000 years ago, about things that happened maybe millions of years ago, can still help us in our devotional life. Just like Dhruva Maharaj, that was like at the beginning of the universe. That was in Satya Yuga, thousands and thousands and millions of years ago. But that lesson that we learned from the pastime of Dhruva and his interaction with Narada Muni, we can put to use. And that basic lesson is that by interacting with a pure devotee such as Narada Muni and following his instructions, even if one is, and Dhruva started out, he was in the mode of passion, and because he wanted a kingdom, he was insulted by his stepmother. So, but why do we read his story? Because his determination to get the kingdom of his father and right the wrong that had been done to him. This is like a Kshatriya thing. Narada Muni skillfully used that and directed it toward bhakti practice. The story. How he went out in the forest, he wanted to find God, because his stepmother told him you have to find God, and his mother told him she gave you good advice. So what happened was that Narada Muni, seeing the great potential here, he first tested him to see if he was determined. And then he gave him instruction for getting the kingdom, which is a very austere yoga practice with incredible austerities. But mixed into it was bhakti, chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, that's chanting the holy name, doing rudimentary deity worship, even out in the forest. And the forest wasn't any old forest, it was Madhuvan, it was, Mathura. And thinking of the Lord within the heart. So he was doing that for material purposes. But he became purified. By the time he saw Vishnu, he had no material desire left. He was a pure devotee. So that's an eternal reality. In other words, many times that's how people come into the Sangha or the association of devotees. Everybody wants something. Nobody's pure, though they have this false ego motivating them. So we can use that. In other words, they come for the feast, or they come for yoga, or they come for fun or something, Curiosity, as Krishna says, that's curiosity. Search for knowledge is the best. But somehow or other, they come into the association of devotees. So that principle is going on. Now and in the future, that's how people become interested in devotion. They get good association, and they get the seed of little faith we were talking about, Prabhupada, the seed of bhakti, planted. And then they become purified, start chanting on the holy name. So a devotee who, such as Maharaj Prithu, who's the ideal king, and that will be described in subsequent verses. It's already been described and will be continually be described. Because he sacrificed so much for the benefit of the citizens, that was his focus. How can they be nicely engaged in their service, everyone employed, and look just like Parikka did. The basic foundational duty of the Kshatriya is to protect, not just to protect physically, but also to protect the consciousness. And so the king has a great responsibility. And when he's doing it so wonderfully as Maharaj Prithu, then his reputation will live on and on. And the great devotees help the reputation of other devotees to live on and on. Prabhupada worked so hard to translate this canto, this verse, this purport, so that as the movement grew, this Bhagavatam would be distributed, and people would read about this in all languages, and they would learn the name Prithu, and they would glorify Prithu. So that reputation is a way of living on after your demise, and that's what's being spoken of here. They're wishing him a long life in the ordinary sense, but they're also understanding that the real long life that he'll have will be through his reputation. So we should be careful, We want to be eternal. We want to live eternally with Krishna, but we also want to have a good reputation, and that means simply being a good devotee, and reputation will take care of itself. Okay, any questions or comments on this point? Otherwise, I'll read the next verse. Okay. Some of you may have a book, you have a device. Aho vayam yanya pavitra kirte. Now let's try it again. Aho vayam yanya pavitra kirte. Tvavaiva nate namukunda nata. Ya uttama shlokatamasya Vishnu Brahman devasya katham vyanakti. The audience continued. Dear King Prithu, your reputation is the purest of all, for you are preaching the glories of the most glorified of all, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord of the Brahmins. Since, due to our great fortune, we have you as our master, we think that we are living directly under the agency of the Lord. Purport. The citizens declared that through being under the protection of Maharaj Prithu, they were directly under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This understanding is the proper situation of social steadiness within this material world. Since it is stated in the Vedas that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the maintainer and leader of all living entities, the king or the executive head of the government must be a representative of the Supreme Person. Then he can claim honor exactly like the Lord's. How a king or leader of society can become the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also indicated in this verse by the statement that because Prithu Maharaj was preaching the supremacy and the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, he was therefore a proper representative of the Lord. To remain under the jurisdiction or administration of such a king or leader is the perfect status for human society. The primary responsibility of such a king or leader is to protect the Brahminical culture and the cows in his state. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandjana Salakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I may have done that before, but it's always pertinent to do it again. So here we see that the reputation of the king is fortified by he himself preaching the glories of the Lord. The Lord's glories, when heard, especially from the proper source, are extremely purifying. You remember that verse from the second chapter, first canto. Srinmatam sakata Krishna punya shabana kirtana vidyantaksto yabadhani vidanoti suritsatam. That when one is hearing the Lord's glories from the right source, from a pure source, Krishna within the heart purifies. And these glories are punya shravana kirtana. By hearing and chanting them, you automatically get purified. You get pious. You become pious. It's purification that's taking place just by hearing, and especially by repeating, hearing and chanting together. So that purification. This is the prime duty of a sincere devotee, is to be fixed in that hearing and chanting, and to give others a chance to hear and chant. Directly, through books, through media, somehow or other. And that's so pleasing to the Lord. In other words, we take advantage of it ourselves, but we don't just go off in our own little bhajan kutir to hear and chant. That's good, but it's not the best. The best, especially following the line of Lord Chaitanya and the movement of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada, is to give others a chance to also hear and chant. That, as Krishna says, no one can be more dear to me than he. For those who are taking the trouble to try to bring others to the fold. It's just like you may be serving very nicely the Lord, but to make another servant, you've just doubled your service. Isn't it? In other words, Srila Prabhupada was very greedy to increase his service by creating other Vaishnavas. So this is how, this is the greatest exchange, with the Lord. And Lord Chaitanya, of course, is very eager to do that. So the reputation is the purest of all. And this purifying potency of everything related to Krishna, first of all, we need to understand our position as contaminated. In other words, being in the material world, the impurities eventually enter our heart. What are those impurities? Lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy, sociopathy, narcissism. You can give it all name what you want, but it binds us to this world and covers our knowledge and causes us misery and everyone we come in contact with. And this is what we're trying to cure. This is the real disease in this world. We can have so much progress in curing material diseases, but have you noticed that they keep coming up? Now they have the antibiotic-resistant germs developing because they're overusing the antibiotics given to all the poor cows so they'll fatten up quicker. After a while the germs mutate and the strong ones survive. I mean, just because, life didn't come from matter doesn't mean that the process of natural selection doesn't work. And so now you've got all these powerful germs. I was reading in India, there's so many these antibiotic-resistant diseases, And that means that you go to the hospital, they don't know what to do with you. They try this, try that, try this, try that. Thousands of people die from that every year. So the point is that there's always going to be disease. But the real problem is the body itself is a disease for the soul. If we can escape the material body by going back to Godhead, then that's the real cure for all disease. So that cure for the disease of birth and death means purification. It begins, it's very important to stay clean in our physical body, our environment and everything. That's the mode of goodness. Because by the mode of goodness, that's a very good platform to cultivate spiritual understanding. It furthers that. So, but that's not all there is. That's just the foundation. To reach the platform of pure goodness means to connect with Krishna through service, through bhakti yoga. And Krishna himself is supremely pure, and the more that we're actually serving him and contacting him, the purer we'll be in heart. And that we can transmit to others. The desire to be pure, the desire to contact the purifying force of bhakti yoga. So Maharaj Prithu, by preaching the glories of the Lord, This is ensuring his reputation. We're great fortune to have you as our master. We think we are living directly under the agency of the Lord. Now, that's true of devotees in genuine who have a bona fide spiritual master, because that's what it means. It means to, the word shishya, which is what disciple means, the disciple word in Sanskrit, means to someone who is controlled, who's agreed to be controlled by the words of the superior personality. That's what Arjuna said in his famous verse of surrender. Shishyasteham shadimam tvampapannam. Now I'm not acting as your friend, although he had this very intimate relationship. But if he stayed on that relationship with Krishna, he wouldn't make any progress, because they're speaking as friend, one friend to another. He's disagreeing with his friend, even though he knows in the back of the mind it's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he had this intimate relationship. So that wasn't going to work to solve his problem. So he had to change the relationship. He said, now I'm your shishya, now instruct me. And immediately what did Krishna do? He chastised him. Ashochanam bachotastram pragyabhadam shabhashase. You're speaking learned words, but you're lamenting for what's not worthy of lamentation. Only the fools do that. So then he explained how Arjuna was on the bodily concept of life. He had been put in that situation so that the Bhagavad Gita could be spoken. He was really totally enlightened, but he was covered so that we can hear the Bhagavad Gita. So that hearing Krishna's instructions, and I'll bring this up again because it's kind of the portal or the gate for advancement, and that is how you hear. This word shushusho, which comes in at the beginning of Bhagavatam, second verse, hearing with, like Maharaj Pariksit, no distraction. Everything is coming in. You're drinking in the words like the purest nectar. This is called submissive oral reception or ardent hearing. Because there's hearing and there's hearing. In one ear out the other. But when you take it in, and it's your life and soul, life transforming, like Pariksit was hearing, that's the ideal. So that hearing from the right source, the pure vibrations of Bhagavatam and any other glorification of Krishna, is what makes all the difference. Hare Krishna. So that kind of hearing is what Maharaj Pritha was propagating. He himself was pure, he's a Shaktivesha avatar, and he's preaching the glories of the most glorified of all. Prabhupada would often use the word glorified, it means glorious, very close. So Krishna is the most glorious of all, and Pritha is glorifying him, and because he's doing that, he's becoming glorious, more glorious, you see? It's just like, a fire. If you stand near the fire, you're going to get warm also, And then you can take that fire, you can spread it around. So that's what Pritha is his nature here, and he's being glorified for that. And he was a proper representative, and the people feel very secure under such a leader. This was also there, I think, maybe in the next verse. Yes, and we've heard that before. This is, the ideal for society. Prabhupada described this in previous verses. The varnashram system with the proper king at the head. Now there's a word, I think it's Naradeva, as a human being who's acting as a god. This is a name for the kings. And we had that when you read about history of Europe, that there was something called the divine right of kings. So this idea was there, but unfortunately, they all became contaminated. They became corrupted, the Kshatriya class. Really, it starts with the Brahmin class. When the Brahmin class becomes corrupted, then the whole society becomes corrupted, because it's the head, So where did it begin? With Shringi, who cursed Maharaj Pariksit. He had the power of the Brahminical tejas of cursing and doing other things, but he was just a boy. He was immature, and he overreacted to this little slight that his father received at the hands of Pariksit. It was all Krishna's hand behind that, so that the Bhagavatam could be spoken and recorded for our benefit. But it was quite dramatic. Here's Pariksit, who's the protector of the people. The question even comes up in the Bhagavatam. He was a king just like Pritha here, and the people were happy under his rule. He was protecting the society. He was chastising Kali. You read the first canto. But he made this one mistake, unprecedented, describes. because he was going through the forest. They sometimes hunt to practice their archery, and he became tired. He became hungry, thirsty, and he came upon this little bhajan kutir of this very exalted soul, Shamika Rishi, and he was in trance. This is sometimes happens in the Shastra, where trouble ensues when that because the person can't really react in the proper way. He was a Brahmin, this Shamika Rishi, and Maharaj Parikshit was a king, a Kshatriya. So by etiquette, the king should show all deference to the Brahmin. But he's the king, and he just wanted some water, but he didn't even get any sweet words or anything. So he became upset, and he took a dead snake and put it around his neck. Get an insult. So that got back to Shringi, and he became incensed, and he reacted as a little boy, although he had the power of the Brahman, Tejas. This is the problem. He curses Maharaj Parikshit to die within 7 days by the bite of the takshaka, snake bird. So word gets back to so as soon as Maharaj Parikshit did that, he was sorry. On the way back to the palace, he was really sorry that he did that. And then when he heard about the curse, he showed his incredible character by not counteracting it, accepting it as the desire of the Lord. He gives up this kingdom, and people ask, why did he do that? So many people were depending on him, for the higher purpose of having the Bhagavatam manifest, which would be the savior of this Kali Yuga. If the Bhagavatam wasn't there, the verse Bhadranarayana Swami, he chants it before every class. Krishna Swadamo Pagate, Dharma Jnana Nibi Saha, Kalo Nashta Dishamesha Puranako Dunoditaha. Haribol, give me a little time. Haribol. Sorry. So this verse means when Krishna was on the planet, he was Dharma and Jnana. He was religion and knowledge personified. And he says in the Gita, I come in order to reestablish Dharma and get rid of the protected devotees, get rid of the miscreants, the asuras. So he did that. You look at his, pastimes, and of course he has his wonderful pastimes in Vrindavan, but all of them are teaching. He's annihilating the demons as well as cultivating all his relations with the devotees and then preaching the Bhagavad Gita. So as long as he was on the planet, Dharma was going to be present and ruling. But then he left after 125 years. So the question is, well, where does Dharma and Gyan really reside now? What are you going to do? And the answer is Bhagavatam. Krishna Swadamo Pakate, when Krishna returned to his Dhamma, his original Dhamma, Goloka Vrindavan, Dham, taking with him Dharma and Gyan, religion and knowledge, Dharma Gyan Visaha, Kalau Nashtadrisha Mesha. Nashtadrisha means those whose sight has been destroyed, the blind, benighted souls of this age. Puranako Dhanodada have been benefited by the rising sun of the Bhagavatam to give light to the benighted population. And that's the mission of Lord Chaitanya, that's the mission of the Hare Krishna movement. So that the leader is so important. So Prithu is in that position, and he's taking care of the people, not only by making sure that they're nicely engaged in their material duties, but by glorifying the Lord. And not only glory, you can imagine, he's arranging for glorification and festivals and everything that Prabhupada did when he was the leader. This is Ratha Yatra, here's how you do Janmashtami, make sure it's going on nicely. Making sure the Brahmins are taken care of and everything. So this is how real civilization works. Look at the contrast. When you have a corrupt Brahminical class or intellectual class and leadership class, Kshatriya, then the whole thing it's like a bus, driving on a dangerous road in a mountain somewhere, and the bus driver doesn't know what he's doing, or is drinking, whatever. I mean, that's what we have today. We just had almost World War III starting, and now they've defused it. I don't know if you've seen the news, but we're not going to war with Iran. That looked like it's a sure thing now, Okay. I mean, it's madness. It's just madness. So here we're giving, this is what Krishna consciousness is trying to do is to, as Prabhupada mentioned many times, to create a proper Brahminical class. And by doing that, it's the head of society. Eventually all the other classes can manifest. Real Kshatriyas, real Vaishyas, Shudras who are satisfied serving and chanting Hare Krishna and getting nice feasts, and being taken care of. But it's difficult because Kali Yuga is very deeply entrenched and there's so many blockages. But if we remain faithful, then we can successfully practice Krishna consciousness, meaning go back to Godhead, and see this movement spread so that people in general are benefited. Okay, any questions on these points? Balaram Ji. Sure.
Earlier talking about Dhruva Maharaj. So it's said, I've heard different devotees say that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu really liked hearing this pastime of Dhruva Maharaj. But I don't know if there's any explanation of why exactly he liked hearing this pastime of Dhruva Maharaj. But maybe you could.
I can honestly say that I've never heard it directed why he liked it, but I can make an educated guess, and that is that it is a phenomenon, that basic principle of the pastime, which is that even coming from a platform of material desire, if one is willing to follow the instructions of a bona fide guru, then that strong desire can be purified so that you become completely pure. And Srila Prabhupada showed that, how to attract people. That was what the Sunday feast was all about, the first Sunday. Kirtananda told Prabhupada that in America, people have a Sunday lunch and Sunday dinner together. So Prabhupada said, okay, let's do that now. Invited people for Sunday dinner. And, the first Sunday feast started. Prabhupada cooked them. You can imagine how attractive those were. So many people came, it's the Hare Krishnas, that's cool, let's go. They may not have really been interested so much in bhakti or in philosophy, but once they tasted the prasadam, they became very interested to return. And as I say, once you get into the association, and you hear kirtan, and people befriend you, and Krishna attracts through all of his devotees in that way. So that's the central principle that Dhruva illustrated, and I think it's especially in this Kali Yuga, it's a central principle of preaching how Krishna consciousness is spread. Otherwise, I'm not sure, but I can try to research it if you remind me. But I have heard that several times that he'd like to hear that pastime again and again. But it is a interesting question. Why? Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'll end with a little poem. I did this one before, but it's ever fresh. Aho aho bir nakale viduyate. Sudha sudara modoram pade pade. Dine dine chandana chandra shitalam yasho yashora tanayasagiyate. Because at every step they drink a flood of wondrous nectar sweet, whose cooling power sandal paste enhanced with camphor can't defeat. They feel as if the raging blaze of Kali's days had ne'er begun. How blessed are they who fill their days with praise of Shri Yashoda's son. So let's fill our day with praise of Shri Yashoda's son. All glories to Srila